Okay. I believe we have the majority of the board in the exec team, so I'm going to go ahead and call the regular meeting of the Board of Trustees of Oak Grove School District on January 20th, 2022 at 5 p.m. to order. May I have a motion and second to approve the agenda as submitted?
Motion to approve the agenda as submitted.
I second.
All right, thank you. We've went ahead and set the agenda. We will now be recessing to closed session to discuss the public employee performance evaluation, the public employee discipline release dismissal, confer with labor negotiator, conference with real property negotiators. Is there anyone to speak to these items?
So Carla, before we move on, if we can, with the first and the second, take a vote on setting the agenda, and then we can move to any public comment on closed session.
Perfect. May I please have a roll call vote then to set the agenda?
Member Yu,
Aye.
Member Moore. Aye. Member Pacheco,
Aye.
Vice President Gonzalez,
Aye.
President Hernandez.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right. Thank you so much for sharing.
Of course.
All right. And just for purposes, I'll go ahead and repeat what we're going to be recessing to closed session for, just to keep us organized. So we will recess to closed session to discuss the public employee performance evaluation, public employee discipline release dismissal, confer with labor negotiator, conference with real property negotiators. And I'd like to now ask if there's anyone to speak to these items.
Yes. Janet Williams.
Okay, go ahead, Janet.
I'd like to speak to the property negotiations that you'll be doing in closed session. You should not be at this point of negotiations in the first place. You're taking a permanent action.
Okay, so at this time, given that,
I apologize. That was my fault. I'm allowing her to talk.
okay,
Go ahead, Janet.
So you should not be at this point of negotiations in the first place. You're taking a permanent asset from our children, making it expendable and giving it away to commercial interests. Further, you're turning this valuable permanent asset into a very temporary benefit that you won't be able to use even a few years from now. And this is a tragedy. Your lack of due diligence and analysis individually as members and as a district management moves this tragedy towards shameful and criminal behavior. You're not ready for this contract, and neither is the contract ready for a vote tonight. Even if Superintendent Monzo, your consultant, your buyer, or even if you think you're ready, several items in this contract are still not in the best interest of the district. You have my emailed list of questions and concerns about the current contract, including the number of homes, the lack of significant playable community open space, more protections for the buyer than for you, and insufficient time for neighborhood engagement written into the contract itself. You say you want to keep the development consistent with the existing neighborhood. Maria already sent you the regulations from when this community was originally built. Following those guidelines would be consistent. This contract is not. How can you adequately address concerns brought up by the public if we only received access this weekend? That hardly gives us time to review and question, and hardly gives you time to address questions and concerns. In your negotiations during closed meetings, please ask for an extension of time to modify, accept, or reject the contract. Do not be rushed into voting yes or no. Do not be pressured to vote yes. Let the permanency of this multi-million, multi-generational decision weigh on you. Ask for time to do your due diligence and further analysis. You need more time before taking action that affects the neighborhood, the future of accessible education in the city, and the generational ability of the district to utilize assets for the education of our children and our grandchildren. Please take this into consideration as you're negotiating tonight. Please vote no, please ask for more time.
okay, thank you, Janet. I see Sophia.
Good afternoon.
Thank you, Sophia Lou. Okay, go ahead.
afternoon, Board of Trustees. I'm Sophia, part of Councilmember Matt Mahan's team, and I will be speaking on behalf of the council member. Dear Oak Grove School District Board of Trustees, I'm writing to express concern regarding the community engagement process associated with the sale of Glider Elementary School to True Life Communities. In my conversations with local stakeholders, numerous residents have expressed frustration with the lack of public engagement and information sharing. While I've just recently begun representing the Glider neighborhood as a result of the city's decennial redistricting process, I have received enough input to have serious concerns. I urge you to delay the vote and design a fuller process to secure community support for your plans. In addition to processing concerns, neighbors have expressed valid fears that future demographic changes in San Jose might increase the need for educational and daycare facilities. They and I are unclear on the district's plans to accommodate future needs if existing school campuses are permanently converted into residential development. Have these needs been modeled, and does the district have contingency plans under different demographic scenarios? It would be helpful to better understand the district's long-term plans for asset utilization and fiscal stabilization before commencing with the sale of the former Glider Elementary School site. I look forward to working with the district and our shared constituents to find solutions that are consistent with the values and needs of all parties involved. Sincerely, Matt Mahan, District 10 Council Member, City of San Jose. Thank you.
Thank you, Sophia. I see Gorish next. Gorish, go ahead, please.
Good evening. I'm going to talk about the property negotiation today. The board had more than 9 months that we know of to draft the contract, but you give the community 6 days to review it. And when do you release it? A day before the long weekend. And how did we get to know about it? It was not by the district, but by the word of mouth. This has been the case of any development by this district, no prior notice. Your agenda says, recommended that the board approves the sale as presented. I wonder if this is all predetermined. I know for a fact that Jorge, Carla, and Nancy have visited our neighborhood. The contract says 2-story houses up to 76 houses on a 9.5 acre land. Are you telling me that you 3 agree with that statement? That does not comply with the neighborhood. 76 houses on a 9.5 acres is approximately 5,400 square feet. With that basic mathematical calculation, there will be no green space, no open space, and no streets, meaning the houses will be less than 5,400 square feet based on the context. Houses in this community are an average of 6,000 square feet. Maria, my neighbor, sent you a CCR document, and I believe your contract just doesn't match it. My understanding is that the board hires the superintendent, but the superintendent has more influence than the school. I'm sorry, the superintendent has more influence in the school district than the board. Manzo told us on our face that the board is solely responsible for the vote and any action. He also told us that the previous board voted for the intent to sell the property. So what have you all 5 board members done? Just follow him blindly? If not, tell us what you have done before voting. The common denominator between this board and the previous board is what? Have you thought about it? It's Jose Manzo. This is my personal first-hand politics that I'm seeing. You all are in the board. Hopefully these next few statements will resonate with you all. You all get a grade B- for listening sessions, except for Tammy, who gets a grade F. But you all 5 board members get a grade F for community engagement and dialogue. So many questions, so many concerns were mentioned. And are you telling me all are protected under the Brown Act? That just doesn't sound right. Over 20 alternatives were provided to you. And are you telling me none of them were considered? That just doesn't sound right. Carla, in my email to you, I told you that you were supposed to get back to us on December 2021, and I still haven't seen any response from you with regards to our questions and concerns. You could have at least responded to a few of them, if not all. You are our district trustee and the new board president. Don't you feel the need to support your community by answering our questions before voting on this contract? Remember, Carla, you are the new board president, and this vote is happening under your watch. We are tax-paying residents, and we should be answered first before any decision is made. The system is broken when 5 people get to decide how they will change our neighborhood. So do the right thing by voting no to this contract. It's a basic 101 in the financial industry to not sell an appreciating asset. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gorish. I see Carlos Gonzalez. Go ahead, Carlos.
So members of the board and Mr. Manso, we tried to work with you guys many months ago. And I just want to echo what my neighbors fellows have said to you all along. Don't sell the property, focus on the children, focus on the new children that will come up in the next 5-10 years. You guys are not in the real estate business to sell. You guys are being taken advantage of by the developer through life. In a really silver platter, you're giving away this beautiful land that will potentially be needed in the future for our children. You are just basically patching the symptom of the current issue of your deficit. You're not fixing the root cause. You are holding such a big responsibility as trustees. You are not in the real estate business. Focus on the children. Don't do this thing just because you have some deficit. And in the money that you will be getting from the developer will be gone in the next 3 to 5 years. And then there you go again. Under Mr. Manso's leadership, you sell another school. I would love to see the state taking over because you guys don't have the skills to hold such big responsibility. I see Tammy laughing when my neighbor fellow just mentioned her name. She refused to talk to us. We were nice to all of you guys, very respectfully. She laughs there. I don't know why she's doing there as a trustee when she hasn't even hold her major responsibility as a trustee to work with the community. You guys are giving this land in a silver platter with less value of what it's worth right now. For what? Fix the root cause of your deficit issue. Be creative. Have this Manso's leadership and justify his salary of almost $400,000 per year. You hire a quote unquote asset management that it's a real estate agent under commission. That's a major conflict of interest. You guys never work together with us, with the community the same way. We again learned by accident that you guys have already done the draft. It's not a draft contract, it is a contract. It's just waiting for a simple signature. Please stop, review it, and work with the community. Do the right thing. Focus on the children of the future, on our children. Don't be a real estate agent. You are in the wrong business right now. Thank you.
Okay. Rochelle, do we have any other comments at this time?
No, we do not.
Okay. Seeing no other comments, the board will now recess to closed session. It is now 5:13 p.m. to the agenda item that you are addressing. If there's no specific item, you are welcome to present comments during public comment. For clarification for tonight's board meeting, comments related to specific agenda items must be made during that agenda item. If you have already addressed the board on an item during public comment, you will not be provided another opportunity to speak when the item is reached on the agenda. We thank you in advance for understanding and regret in advance for muting speakers for this reason. At this time, I will now go ahead and pass it on over to the land acknowledgement. While I would be honored to recite the land acknowledgement, Member Pacheco has kindly requested to continue this reading, and I would love for him to do so. Go ahead, Member Pacheco.
Thank you so much, President Hernandez. 1 second. So we would like to acknowledge that the Oak Grove School District and our schools occupy the unceded territory of the Muwekma Ohlone Nation, the sovereign nation and original peoples of the skies, land, and waters where we work and learn. The Muwekma Ohlone peoples are the stewards of these lands and of the teaching and learning that comes from and responds to the needs of the land and people who share it. May our daily lives and work, research, teaching, and community engagement support the evolving vision of the Muwekma Ohlone for their community and these lands. Thank you.
Superintendent Manso, will you please lead the flag salute?
Yes, President Hernandez. If members of the public can join me. Salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Superintendent Manso. This now leads us to item 3.4, the Superintendent's Report and Vision Awards. Please go ahead, Superintendent Manso.
Thank you, President Hernandez. I'd like to start with an announcement that that I believe we all are deeply saddened to share and to learn about the passing of Rita Ledesma. Rita was a long-time supporter of Oak Grove, a classified employee and a parent of Oak Grove. She brought advocacy to our Latino students in the 70s and provided other areas of leadership in our district, some of which created the Las Madres en Acción, which again represented the interests and the needs of our Oak Grove Hispanic community. She was also the first district community liaison in Oak Grove and helped with the first bilingual education program at Baldwin. In 1999, the board trustees in the development of a new school, Oak Grove proudly honored her legacy by naming the school Rita Ledesma Elementary School in 1999-2000, which was the very first year that it opened. Our condolences go out to the Ledesma family. We are honored to have known Rita and are so grateful for her nurturing, positive environment that she carried forward within our district. And so I have personally spoken with a member of the Ledesma family who is planning to have an event. And we, of course, want to collaborate and provide an opportunity where our community, our staff, are able to recognize this incredible lady in our community. So if I could respectfully request a moment of silence for Ms. Rita Ledesma. Thank you. Excuse me. I also want to report that we continue to work through the challenges with COVID, and we recognize the ongoing changes to the guidance that is being provided either at the state level or at the county level, and almost on a weekly basis, it seems that we get updates on some of these changes. There was a very recent change, and Ms. Bowles will go into a little bit more detail later on but just wanted to acknowledge that this latest guidance has also created some confusion around the guidance and some possible challenges in terms of the interpretation of the guidance compared to CDPH's guidance. And so I just wanted to mention that there'll be more information later on, but we'll continue with our current practices that we've communicated with our bargaining groups until there's a greater clarity on the guidance that is coming from our county superintendent of schools in Santa Clara County, and also our county public health from Santa Clara County. I want to mention a significant donation that our district received. We finally have our Chief Facility Operations Officer, Gabriel Altamirano, who started at the beginning of the year in January. He comes to us with school district experience and a lot of energy, and we're, I believe, really fortunate to have him on our team. And within his first week, he was able to receive a donation of 30,000 Lysol disinfectant wipes with a net value of about $144,000 that our district will benefit and our classrooms will benefit from that donation. So I just want to acknowledge Mr. Altamirano with a welcome. And so I'm just curious what he's going to do as an encore to that within his very first week of being an employee of the district. So, but I'm happy to report that we'll be able to share that with our schools as well, keeping our schools safe. Additionally, I want to report that our business office management team, with leadership of Ms. Laura Fan and Ms. Van Nguyen and also Mr. James Moreno, worked to submit a grant for replacement of buses. And I'm happy to report that that grant proposal was preliminarily approved. We received an approval letter that would allow us to replace 12 of our oldest school buses from our fleet, which also represents a value of $4.5 million to our district. And so again, I want to highlight just the tremendous effort that our team there within our business office is undertaken and has been undertaking. Just the prior year, we also received the benefit of close to $1 million in donations for the replacement of the Stipe Playground and Edenville Playground as well. All of that replacement was at no cost to the district. And so, you know, we continue as a leadership team, as a management team, to look for opportunities to create offsets to our budget to ensure that we're maximizing the resources that we do have and channeling those resources to our students. And so these are a couple of current examples of some of those efforts to maximize our resources. And it's timely that we're also recognizing through our Vision Awards the maximizing of resource awardees for our district. And so I'd like to take an opportunity to also recognize our members that are being selected or recognized for that award. And so the recipients were selected based on the following criteria of actively seeks out and creatively plans for maximum use of time and money and effective use of human and material resources in the school and community, effectively plans and implements for the best use of resources, provides ongoing and constructive evaluation of the use of resources and the impact of planned use on students, the classroom, and or the school environment. And so as we do and have been doing in these cases when we're doing this virtually, we recognize the individuals here, but we also send out a communication to all our employees where the names are being recognized throughout our district. We also share that on our website and our social media platforms so that there's acknowledgement of their tremendous efforts and the recognition that they're receiving on behalf of the board tonight. So with that, I'd like to congratulate the following members. From Anderson Elementary, Cindy Bosworth, TK KSDC teacher. From Baldwin Elementary, Nicole Nielsen, first grade teacher. From Christopher Elementary, Mireya Cortez, health clerk, and Faria Roberts, 3/4 grade teacher. From Educational Services Department, Kevin McCullough, VPA music teacher, and Leslie Sapien, multimedia library specialist. From Frost Elementary, Amelia Hill, community liaison, and Elizabeth Valencia, noon duty. From Ledesma Elementary, Sandra Sanchez Mendoza, health clerk. From Oak Ridge Elementary, Stacy Dolan, kindergarten teacher. From Parkview Elementary, Rochelle Solma, occupational therapist. And from the STEAM at Stipe Elementary, Miss Lori Laforte, third grade teacher. A big shout out to all of our maximum use of resources recipients. We recognize that there are many, many more throughout our district, and just want to acknowledge that we appreciate all of the efforts of our community, of our staff, classified and certificated, in supporting the needs of our students in our community. With that, that concludes the superintendent's report, President Hernandez.
Thank you so much, Superintendent Manso. Again, our deepest condolences to the Ledesma community and of course the family members of Rita Ledesma. And a super congratulations to everyone for the Vision Awards, especially during this time. It's a timely award of maximizing the use of resources. So again, we just thank you for your dedication to our communities. So at this time, that would bring us to 3.5, the closed session report. And the board met in closed session to discuss public employee performance evaluation. No action was taken. The public employee discipline release dismissal and no action was taken. Confer with the labor negotiator, no action taken. And conference with real property negotiators and no action was taken. Thank you, everyone. This now moves us to the public hearing 4.1. We would begin and I will open the public hearing on 4.1, the initial bargaining proposal from Oak Grove School District to the Oak Grove Educators Association. Is there anyone to speak on this public hearing at this time?
There are no comments on this item.
Okay. Seeing no comments on this particular item on 4.1, I will now close the public hearing. This brings us to 4.2. I open the public hearing on 4.2, public hearing on the initial bargaining proposal from the Oak Grove Educators Association to the Oak Grove School District. Is there anyone to speak on this public hearing?
Bob Prola.
Go ahead, Bob. Thank you.
Good evening, board. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for this opportunity to address the board. I wanted to just speak on the initial bargaining proposal and to kind of encourage this board to consider taking proactive action with our management bargaining team about how they're going to approach negotiations this time around. Inflation is soaring right now. Oak Grove educators have not had a real raise in years now. And we want the board to encourage management to come to the table with a real proposal right off the bat. So we don't have to waste a bunch of time going back and forth over a lowball type of a proposal. At this point in time, the budget for this school year was very good. And the budget for next school year in the state looks very good. So this is not the time to play games. We are hoping for a very serious proposal from the Oak Grove School District when we go to the table, which is starting up on the 25th. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Are there any other comments at this time for item 4.2, Rochelle?
There are no other comments.
Okay. Seeing no other comments on the item 4.2, I will now close this public hearing. This brings us now to item 5.1, public comment. I'd like to remind the public that this is an opportunity for individuals to address the board on any school-related issue, which is not a part of this evening's agenda. Are there any individuals who wish to address the board on items not on tonight's agenda?
Carlos Gonzalez,
Go ahead, Carlos.
I want to speak up in relation to the glider cell.
Okay. We would kindly ask you then to wait for that item number. Thank you.
Thank you, Carla.
Any other public comments on items that are not on tonight's agenda?
Leo Gelman,
Go ahead.
This is Laura Fujikawa, actually. Dear Board of Trustees, so this is in regards to the glider sale. Are you ready to take comment on that yet?
No, thank
No,
you for
okay,
asking.
all right.
That will be happening in item 7.
Okay.
Thank you.
we have Chrissy Hodgen S.
Okay, Chrissy, do you have a comment that's not on tonight's agenda?
I'm pretty sure it's not about glider. Okay, I'm just gonna read it because it's just easier that way. So I'm Chrissy.
Thank you.
I'm Chrissy Hoganesh. I'm a teacher at Adventure STEM. I've been with Oak Grove for going on 14, almost 15 years. In the past few years, OGSD leadership and board has had to make some really challenging decisions during a time of this constantly changing information. When these decisions were made in the past, it was typically a bit late in the game. After surrounding districts had already addressed issues regarding remote teaching expectations, and later on when we had to make the call about hybrid learning, with only weeks left in the school year. Now with the recent change of information from the county regarding close contact notification policies to families, OGSD again is doing what is, in my opinion, the bare minimum. The suggestion from the county was a suggestion from my understanding of reading that, not necessarily a mandate, to no longer send individual close contact notices to families. Instead, just for the sake of everybody listening, you're still going to get contacted, just not individually. It would be group close contact. OGSD certainly could have kept up the current practice that has already been in place, despite the increase in cases we've seen, since we understand that the Omicron variant is short-lived. When closing schools right now, as in going to remote teaching, is not even an option, thanks to blocks from the county, maintaining this really clear and really consistent communication is absolutely essential. I get questioned from parents quite frequently about, should I be worried? Was my kid close contact? And obviously I cannot divulge that information, but they are just as confused. I empathize with how much work it has been to do this contact tracing and to send out these notices. But that's just kind of the nature of education in any role that you're at in this particular moment in time. Everyone is burnt out, not just teachers, everyone who works on a school campus. But we show up, we do what we're here to do, despite the difficulty, despite the frustration, despite the pure exhaustion at the end of the day. I'm not sure if you started your conversations around staffing for next school year, but honestly, you might not even need to worry about if you need to cut jobs, as is usually the case every year. I kind of predict you'll be scrambling to fill positions as many people are beginning to look elsewhere. Which brings me to another issue, the safety and security of our campuses. Herman continues to be vandalized every time there is a long weekend or a school break. And we're not alone. Other schools have also been hit. Recently, over this past long weekend, the gardening club at Adventure came to school to see all of the plants they had been tending completely ripped up, all of them. And that's certainly not a great way to start your day. And of course, the teachers who run that club are the ones who get to answer all of their questions of why. The thing is, we don't really have answers to give them. Why are there?
Thank you, Chrissy. And thank you for being an educator at our schools. We do have COVID-related items on item 8.1 in case there's any other listeners that would like to comment on that. That would be the appropriate space to comment on COVID-related concerns. Are there any other comments on items that are not on tonight's agenda?
Bob Prola,
Go ahead, Bob.
I will wait for item 8.1. Mine is COVID related. Sorry about that.
No worries at all. Thank you, Bob.
There are no other requests to speak.
Okay, thank you so much, Rochelle. This now concludes 5.1 public comment. We will now move forward to 5.2 employee bargaining unit comment. May I please have a representative from CSEA? If there are any. Okay,
I'm seeing none.
any representatives from AFSCME?
I'm seeing none.
Okay,
We have
and that was
OGA,
supposed,
Maripaz.
perfect, thank you. I was going to say that was supposed to go in alphabetical order and I flipped the A and the C. Okay, OGA, please.
Hello, good evening. Maripaz Berlin, President of OGA. Thank you. I wanted to first start off with bargaining. As our Vice President Bob Prola said, we will be starting bargaining. That will be on Tuesday, the 25th. And then for our equity and human rights work, I wanted to give a little update from that from last month, which seems so long ago. But January has been a long month and it's not even, we're not even barely halfway there. So we were able to distribute about 267 coats for our Gift of Warmth project at Davis on December 13th. That was right before we went on break. We wanted to give a big, huge thank you to Trustees Hernandez, Yu, Pacheco, and Assistant Superintendent Bowles for coming down to help us distribute coats to our Oak Grove families. It was a very rainy afternoon, and everybody stuck it out. We look like wet dogs out there, but it didn't matter. We were able to spread the love, and we're looking forward to doing that again this coming December. So thank you again. Thank you for participating. I wanted to give a little update also on the letter that we had written, and we included board members, and it was to Superintendent Monzo and Board President Hernandez, but we also tagged in Trustees Yu, Pacheco, Moore, and Gonzalez. In it were recommendations, and it was acknowledging the all the things that were going on when we first returned to school. We were appreciative of the forethought of giving home test kits to our students before we returned. We appreciated pausing in-person meetings, and then also closing our staff rooms to create a safer spaces. But we also included in there some recommendations of how we can improve our situation. I don't think we anticipated the onslaught coming back from break, going into our December break. Everyone was really happy and joyful, looking forward to spending time with families. I don't know that we had anticipated the hundreds of positive cases that would arise when we came back. So we had quickly regrouped and looked at what could improve in this situation. What could we do to provide input and some insight into what was going on? So we had recommendations for improving communication to staff and families regarding the changes in protocol and procedures. And as of a few days ago, you can see that that is changing again. So it's really difficult to keep up with that. So it is a tall order, but we need to be able to have clear and frequent communications to staff and our families so that everyone is on the same page. We also were recommending increasing testing sites as well as having home test kits readily available. That was a big hot point. When we returned, there weren't enough kits and there was confusion as to who gets the kits. And we didn't have enough test sites, and what we had originally planned with Bay PLS coming to sites, they couldn't do anymore. So there was confusion about that. So we had also requested the date for the portable HEPA filters for classrooms and other spaces. And this, you had discussed at the last board meeting in December. And we were waiting for some communication about when that would be. And then lastly, we had requested mask upgrades to the N95 masks or KN95, as the case may be, for those as those are the best at filtering out the airborne Omicron virus. We since then have met, OG leadership has met a couple of times with Assistant Superintendent Bowles and Assistant Superintendent Chides. We were able to discuss the recommendations. We were pleased with the cooperation and collaborative conversations that we've been able to have, especially with all the different changes that have been happening. It's nice to be able to work together to problem solve these issues. We like that there's been additional testing sites, especially with extended hours, as well as a separate line for staff. Some staff do feel a little guilty kind of cutting the line, but it's okay. They have a job to do. They do that and then get back to whatever work they need to do. And then we also had advocated for teachers being included in notifications for when their students return to their classrooms. There were some inconsistencies about how that happened. And so teachers are now being included in that notification process. It's a lot of information. Our families are getting a lot of information and our teachers are getting a lot of information. But we do also understand that this is temporary and that we do need to keep up with the communication piece so that everybody understands what's going on. There's a lot of balls in the air that we have to juggle, and it's difficult to balance it all, but I don't think we can really let up on the communication piece. I do want to share also that because of the high case rates, we know that the one-page information updates that that Assistant Superintendent Bowles is sharing has changed. That last change from this past Wednesday, which was just yesterday, caused a lot of questioning because it was different than what we had just read about in terms of the contact tracing for those exposed. We had discussed it ourselves in our rep council yesterday. And the latest change is that if there was a wide scale or repeated exposures and all of that, that they would not need to let families know. They were just going to be encouraged to take a test. So currently the California Teachers Association legal team has responded to the letter. This is from Dr. Dewan and her misinterpretation of the CDPH guidelines. We're hoping that and I'm relieved to hear Superintendent Monzo talking about that we're going to continue with what we've done before so that we'll still have that consistency. But I want us to all understand that CDPH is not sanctioning this elimination of student notification. We still need students to be notified when they've been exposed. I did clarify with Assistant Superintendent Chides that staff would also continue to get notification if they had a positive exposure in their classes. So I know Assistant Superintendent Bowles will be talking about that later, and I hope we can have some more clarity around that and some bottom lines, because I would like to give some peace of mind to our members and staff about that, and as well as our families as well. And the last point I wanted to share, our unit member, Christy Hoganesh, had spoken about it in her public comment, is about the vandalism and burglaries that have been occurring at some of our school campuses. This has been happening since we were sheltering in place and we're teaching remotely. I think our communities, and now that we're back, I think now there's a lot more people on campus, people are working late and all of that. But I think we also need to increase our security and really look at how it's being addressed at this moment. I've had conversations with Superintendent Monzo about this, and I've also had interactions with our new Chief of Operations, Gabriel Altamirano. He's been very responsive about that. But the burglaries and vandalisms have happened during our breaks in October, November, December, and our long weekends, such as the one that we just had this past weekend, as Ms. Hoganesh just shared a bit ago. I've talked about this before in my emails to OGSD leaders, that we need to be able to keep our school spaces as safe spaces, especially with so many things that are happening right now in the lives of our students and families. When they come to school and they see that windows are broken, items have been destroyed, extinguishers have been deployed, items are stolen, it's a violation and invasion of that space. Those spaces are second homes to our teachers and our students. Those are the most consistent spaces for them besides their home. We need to be able to keep them that way. So I've had conversations with, I've had email conversations with Superintendent Monzo and Chief Operations Officer Gabriel Altamirano. I appreciate the prompt response, and it sounds like there are things that are happening where cameras will be installed at certain school sites, and I hope there's other things that are happening. He mentioned something with the brightening the lights, and then I made some suggestions also. So I hope we can really keep those at bay. I don't know what the implications are that are happening to the people in our community that are vandalizing our spaces. I don't have an answer for that, but I do know that if we can control it, then I think we need to do the best that we can, so that when the kids come to school, when our teachers come to school, they can see that nothing has been disturbed, and they can do what they do best, which is teach and be with the kids. So that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you so much, President Berlin. And again, thank you for always your consistent communication and transparency. And thank you for all the work that you're doing. At this time, that concludes employee bargaining unit comment. That leads us to item six, consent items. Superintendent Monzo, would you please present the consent items at this time?
Thank you, President Hernandez. I'd like to present items in the consent agenda and request the board approve items 6.1 through 6.14 as presented.
May I have a motion and a second to approve the consent items?
Motion to approve consent agenda as presented.
I second.
Okay. I heard a first and a second. Are there any public comments at this time for item 6, consent agenda?
No comments.
Thank you, Rochelle. Trustees, do you have any comments or questions? Okay. At this time, I would love to publicly thank the following donations. Again, that 30,000 Lysol wipes from Kids in Need Foundation, which has an in-kind value again of 144,000. It's just super incredible. So thank you so much. We also had some donations that I would love to publicly thank. The donation of 100 new teddy bears with a value of $1,095 from Nob Hill and Nob Hill customers to Frost. Donation from Mr. Leonard Barnes to Hayes. Donation from Mrs. Christine Burgos to Ledesma. And then a Ledesma donation of a portable speaker system in the amount of $139 from Mrs. Marilyn Bueno-Rin. And finally, a Parkview donation of 14 Apple iPads from Mr. Kalpesh Panchal. Again, thank you so much for donations, for taking care of our communities in this way. That now concludes consent agenda. Apologies, if we can have a first and a second, and then a roll call vote.
For the record, I have Member Pacheco with the first and Member Gonzalez with the second.
Okay, roll call vote then to approve the consent agenda.
Member Yu,
Aye.
Member Pacheco,
Aye.
Member Moore,
Aye.
Vice President Gonzalez,
Aye.
President Hernandez,
Aye.
motion carries.
Thank you so much. This now leads us to our first action item of the night, 7.1. Real property purchase and sale agreement of Glider Elementary School site property. Superintendent Monzo, will you please introduce this item?
Yes, President Hernandez. As you know, this item has been in the works for many, many months and actually many years. As part of the backup documentation that is presented in tonight's meeting through the presentation link, it shows the multi-year timeframe that has led to ultimately seeing this item as an action item for the board tonight. Back in 2017, through significant loss of enrollment, our district went through a process of a district advisory committee that was charged, the consolidation advisory committee that was charged to look at the dynamics around the loss of enrollment, consider a lot of factors related to the charge of the committee to bring a recommendation back to the board that to close up to 3 schools for the district. That committee, the board appointed school consolidation committee, was also chaired by a subcommittee of the board of 2 board members as well. And so as part of that process, all of the meetings were held in public, and it lasted approximately 6 to 8 months. I can't remember exactly the duration of time. But as part of that process, ultimately Minor and Glider elementary schools were approved to be closed by the board. At the onset of that process, there was interest from the board to market those properties for lease use of the properties. Certainly as part of the school consolidation process, the intent was ultimately to reduce expenditures for the district by having to upkeep less schools, since we also had significantly less enrollment for the district, and at the same time look for revenue generating opportunities for the district as well. And so the original intent of pursuing the disposition of those 2 properties was for the leasing of the properties. Minor, within a fairly short amount of time, the district was successful in achieving an initial short-term lease agreement with a private school entity that served autistic students that the board approved for a lease agreement for a duration of time. Throughout that entire time, the Glider property was marketed for leasing, and there were no significant interests for the property. And there were minor interests for small portions of the property, but really no significant interest for the full property itself. The property was continued to be marketed throughout that entire time. And the board continued to work through a process of having the properties formally considered surplus property. With that in mind, the board appointed a 7-Eleven committee to provide some recommended dispositions for those properties. The properties prior to completion of a 7-Eleven committee, the district is only able to enter into short-term agreements with potential prospective lessees. And in order to enter into longer-term agreements, then a 7-Eleven committee process needed to be completed, a report provided to the board for consideration. The 7-Eleven committee report is an advisory report to the board. The board has the discretion to implement some of it, all of it, or the board has the discretion to consider other factors, and if it chooses not to follow some of the considerations presented to the board as part of that advisory report. In addition, but that process was completed. In addition, the district also recognized as part of the leasing of the attempt for leasing for the short-term leases for minor and glider, that it also wanted to protect the enrollment for the district. Through legal counsel, the board was informed that if the board wanted flexibility to be able to select either a lessee or a purchaser of properties that would be serve the overall best interest of the district, that it needed to submit a waiver to the state in order for the district and the board to be able to make those determinations. Absent that waiver, then the district and the board, when those properties are marketed, would have to enter, either sell or lease the properties to whomever the highest bidder is for those properties, irregardless of the potential other impacts it may create for the district. As an example, during the time that the minor property was being evaluated or marketed for lease, the board also received a request for a lease of that property from a private school entity. The board did choose not to move forward with a lease for that entity because it would further erode the enrollment of the district and compete for enrollment moving forward. And it would be a greater financial impact to the district than the benefit it would receive from the leasing of that property. Therefore, the board did move forward and pass a resolution to apply for a waiver for the state that would allow the board the discretion to evaluate any proposal for either lease or sale, and make the determination based on what would be in the overall best interest and benefit to the district. In addition, the board also, as part of that process, passed a resolution to market the properties for either lease or sale of both minor and glider. The final part of that process, as part of the sending out proposals, the RFP for glider, there was 4 bids that were from developers and 1 bid that was from for a lease proposal, again from a private school entity. The board evaluated all of those proposals and with the waiver in place, ultimately made a choice to continue to negotiate with one of those entities, which was True Life properties, True Life companies, excuse me. The board and the district, along with True Life companies, have been engaged since June in a process for negotiating a contract or purchase agreement for that property. Once the board made a selection of the preferred entity, which they had to make within 60 days of being presented the bids for those properties. The board did that, and again, from that point forward, has been negotiating the terms of the agreement. During the December, shortly before the December break, there was an informational night that was provided to the community with the history and the background that again is presented as part of the presentation link to this agenda item. And so at this point, the board has before them a purchase agreement for the sale of the glider property. As part of this process, should the board approve the agreement, then there would be a 60-day due diligence period for the True Life companies to further evaluate their interest for the property. And assuming that that is completed, then it would engage a community engagement process following that. And so certainly a lot of time to get to this point and recognize the challenges that it presents for various aspects of our community and also for our board, and also recognize the many opportunities to provide a mechanism, a tool for the board to also stabilize and provide ongoing benefits to our students that we serve, to our communities that we serve as well. So with that, I'd like to recommend that the board approve the glider purchase agreement as presented.
Thank you, Superintendent Manso, for the summary. May I have a motion and second at this time for item 7.1?
Motion to approve the agreement as presented.
Do we have a second at this time?
I second.
Okay, thank you. We will now move forward for public comments.
Harish Desai.
Thank you. Go ahead, Parish. Parish, go ahead. Okay, we can go ahead and move on to the next.
Hello, can I
Oh.
speak?
Yeah, there you are. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, sorry, I missed that button.
Okay. Thank you.
So I'd like to begin by thanking the board for the opportunity to speak. I live less than half a mile from the school, and I would like to once again request the board to postpone the vote on the sale of this property and get a second opinion on the options for sustainably funding the school district. I make this request because I believe the recommendation of the existing consultant is biased by his background in real estate and the commission-based compensation scheme that has been agreed to. However, if you choose to move forward with the vote, I have the following concerns about the draft proposal, which has been posted on the website. One is the number of housing units is too high and the open space allocation for the community is too little. I appreciate the clause for community outreach, but the draft says the buyer shall solicit and consider any feedback or concerns from the community relating to the buyer's proposed project. It seems to me that basically we are completely at the mercy of the developer, and the board is not going to have any veto powers to enforce community concerns that the board deems reasonable. The draft has no mention of an environmental impact report and reviewing the same with the community. Also, it's not clear whether the two-story single-family detached units include a garage for the parking, or there is going to be one more level for the parking garage. effectively making them 3-story units. I also would like to know when the tentative map is going to be published. That was not included in the draft. And finally, my question is with regard to the budget shortfalls, has the district updated the budget based on the latest census data? In conclusion, my family is opposed to the draft proposal in its current form. And if the board approves the same, then we intend to join the community efforts to oppose the rezoning of this property to approve the proposal as it currently stands. Thank you for the opportunity to speak again.
Thank you, Parrish. I see Dennis Hawkins. Go ahead, Dennis Hawkins.
Mr. Hawkins, if you can please unmute yourself.
Okay, we can go ahead. Oh,
No, I'm fine. I did. I'm
There we
sorry, I missed that. Honorable board members, district staff, and fellow community members, I'd like to speak tonight of my concerns on the process that has been used for these is contrary to the recommendations of the 7-Eleven Committee, which stated that they had a preference for leases and wanted to discourage sales based upon development and neighbor impacts.
Dennis, I'm sorry, we're having some trouble hearing you. Seems to be a connectivity issue unless that's on my end. Okay. Perhaps for the purpose of time, we can go ahead and message Dennis and move on to another comment at this time, and hopefully we'll be able to revisit him a little later on. I see Anson. Go ahead, Rochelle. Thank you.
Anson Williams.
Hello, my name is Anson Williams and I'm in 6th grade attending Sakamoto. I want to ask you to please not sell glider school. My neighbors on my street and I have played there all the time. Yesterday, 8 of us wanted to play Foursquare because it's a safe outdoor activity that we can social distance. We started to play in the street and then asked my mom if we can take us to glider to play there. We did have a great time playing Foursquare, tag on the playground, and basketball. If we also glider roll, we'd be able to play in the street. And with more houses crammed into our neighborhood, our street is going to have a lot more cars and it won't be safe for us to play. Please vote no on the contract today. Thank you.
Thank you, Anson. I see Lori.
Hello, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to unmute myself. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. Let me, one moment, please. Okay. Good evening, fellow board members and Superintendent Manzo. I've lived and worked in Blossom Valley for 30 years in the real estate community, and the upcoming move to offload this property to pay off teachers' pensions and pay off debt is a short-term fix. Look at the ramifications of selling and the impact to our neighborhood. Although many newcomers have moved here because of what was the glider distinguished school designation, while others were made up of former IBMers, many of which are ready to retire or have retired. Because our real estate home prices are some of the lowest in Santa Clara County and San Jose, when these folks retired, I'm confident there will be a wave of new homeowners with kids. What are you going to do? Build on Sakamoto, add stories, etc.? As the kids are now elbow to elbow with kids moved from glider. Bus kids to other districts? What about your jobs? This could be the beginning of the end for the need for as many teachers. Or are you planning to Zoom the kids that rely on public education after COVID? Regarding the sale, if you've placed this 9-acre parcel asset on the open commercial real estate market, you would find that what you are currently being offered would be better known as a fire sale. This is just a Band-Aid. Plus, it appears that after the sale and you make yourselves whole on the debt and paid teachers' pensions, you'll have what, a little over $1 million left in your coffers? I'm surprised that you would accept such a low bid. As stewards of our community asset, which our property taxes pay for, I cannot believe you did not rely on professionals who could offer several other better options for all involved. During this time, there was the onset of COVID closures in early 2020, which was a terrible time to move forward with a lease or sale, as this time was unprecedented and I feel didn't provide a full and clear picture of the market. What about putting this project on the open market? What about the temporary closure of Branham High School? They leased the property to Valley Christian when this was closed. And while the Valley Christian building was being built, they decided, okay, we've completed that. And then they returned it to Branham. And funny enough, after that, there was a need to reopen the Branham High School after that completion. So my question is, what if this is the case with Glider? What is your proposed action? It appears that you care more about taking care of your employees in the short term and would rather kick this can down the road. This situation does not leave a good taste in our mouths. And isn't it your job to have good relations in the community you were elected and supposedly serve? Please wait and
Thank you, Lori. Blake Williams, go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead,
Cool.
Blake. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Selling the Glider School property under any terms is criminal. It is stealing a place of education from current children and families and from future generations of children and families that live and will live in this neighborhood. Please do the right thing, which is the same thing recommended by the 7-Eleven committee, and keep this income producing asset in the possession of the district to be used to generate income for the district, not just for the next 3 to 5 years, but for the next 15 to 30, or until the facility is again needed by the district to fulfill the primary purpose of the Oak Grove School District, provide the highest possible quality education to the children of this area. I've only heard fear tactics from Superintendent Monzo, and he asks the question, how else are we going to come up with 25 million? Isn't that a consultant's job to help you come up with several new ideas? Dutra's analysis of leave versus sale lacks true consultant solutions and introduces a conflict of interest. We provided you 2 referrals for consultants, 1 asset manager and 1 financial consultant specializing in public entities, who would provide deeper analysis at hourly fees within 3 to 4 months. You are making this decision out of fear of what could happen in the next few years. Fear does not make for good decision-making. Even though Monzo has been thinking about this for years, you independently are not sufficiently educated about this issue, and voting yes today to sell is premature and rushed. And once you vote, there's no turning back. Once you hand over this tremendously valuable resource to a greedy commercial interest for the laughable amount that you negotiated, it's gone forever. You sacrifice your ability and the ability of future boards of this district to provide for educational needs of the children in this area forever, just in exchange for the funds required to keep the district solvent for the next 3 to 5 years. Don't trade forever in return to 3 to 5 years. Just because you feel hungry now, right now, don't sell your birthright for a mess of pottage. Thanks.
Thank you, Blake. Megan Wise, go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can. Go ahead, Megan. Thank you.
Thank you, President Hernandez. Hello, board members. I am an OGSD parent of a 3rd grader and a preschooler and a Glider neighborhood resident. Over the past several months, my neighbors and I have continued to ask that you pause the sale of Glider to engage and collaborate with us on an appropriate solution going forward. I again ask that you pause the sale tonight. I've continued to be disappointed at the lack of collaboration and transparency from the board and district. Even when a quote unquote neighborhood meeting was advertised to our community, as Superintendent Monzo mentioned, it ended up being a one-way live stream session with no ability for the neighbors to communicate back. As mentioned by earlier commentators, the 7-Eleven committee recommended not to sell Glider. We've met with our new San Jose City Council member, Matt Mahan, and he too has expressed concerns conveyed earlier in this meeting. Neither of these opinions seem to matter, and nor does the 800 signatures we've collected opposing the sale. In reading through the contract that you're voting on tonight to sell Glider to the True Life companies, I'm struck by two things. One, this plan has 76 homes on the Glider property. You've continually stated to us in numerous meetings, emails, and communications that the development would keep in line with the current feel of the neighborhood. 76 homes in this small space absolutely does not. And second, the sale price is $26.5 million. Outside of being grossly undervalued compared to current property values, as many have mentioned tonight, after closing costs, there will be just enough to cover the 3-year deficit of $25 million that you've continued to mention. What is the board's plan after that? I'm very concerned as a parent and of children in this district. Does selling Glider by the district really only 3 to 5 years? Again, it seems like such a short-term solution to a much larger term problem that we really need to solve for our children. And you've continuously stated that your focus is on the education of these children. It's quite alarming to understand that this is what you're willing to sell off Glider for. Additionally, I'm continually disappointed by board members' treatment of public speakers during these board meetings, including visible laughing while on video. Please understand that while you do not see our speakers' faces, we all see yours. You're in an elected public office being recorded on video, and it's very disrespectful to treat community members this way, especially in a public forum. Thank you.
Thank you, Megan, for your comments. Carlos? Go ahead, Carlos.
Yeah, can you guys hear me, please?
We can, thank you.
Right. So my comments are practically the same as I said it at the closed session earlier today. I just wanted to call you guys out and put emphasis on the fact that you guys are not really holding your jobs and responsibilities and role that we have been giving you as trustees. You guys are not into the real estate business. You guys don't know what you're doing. Dominic Dutra, the guy that you hire as a quote unquote asset management consultant, he's not, he's a real estate agent. He's gonna get his commission and he's gonna walk out. When we have asked several months to go to a different second opinions, and you have refused to do that. We have given you options for asset management. It is so funny that Mr. Manso mentions ongoing benefits for our students. What are the ongoing benefits? You're practically giving away that beautiful land of Glider out of the $26.5 million you're gonna get. And that's gonna be depleted in the next 3 to 5 years. And what comes after that? Another school? So it's minor, Glider, and what comes next? For us? So where are we gonna put my kids? Where are we gonna put our kids? So I think it's better that the state takes over the district because you guys are not capable of resolving this major deficit issue. Don't blame it on the low school enrollment. That's just a blame. Manso, justify your almost $400,000 per year that you get. And what do? Sell properties? Sell school lands for our kids? Where are they gonna go in the next 5-10 years? This is the wrong decision to make. All this lack of communication between the community. Where is engagement? Tammy, you laughed earlier when one of our neighbors were mentioning your lack of involvement. At least we met with the rest of the trustees, but you refused to meet with us. How can you just maximize your resources when you're practically giving away that school? Campbell High School District received $27 million for 6 acres, and that was 4 years ago. 4 years ago. You're selling 9.5 acres for less than that amount. Shame on you guys. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Carlos. Jessica. Go ahead, Jessica.
Hello, thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. One of the questions I asked myself as you were speaking earlier is that if the private schools are submitting bids, doesn't that mean there's kids in the neighborhood that are going to be available to go to those schools? Because the private schools seem to think so, so much so to the point that they're willing to sign a lease. And you have this land for free. Also, I think we should ask the kids and teachers who are packed into Sakamoto if there's an enrollment problem. Because when I toured there were 24 kids per teacher with 2 classes in one room with bookcases down the middle. Sorry, I'm just getting a little frustrated. That's 48 kids and 2 teachers in one classroom. And that's only going to get worse. You're going to build this high density housing, and where are those kids going to go to school? Also, there's other issues. There's issues with not enough green space. There's issues with where are all those cars going to park? Because each person's going to have 2 to 3 cars. We're nowhere near public transportation. So how are they going to get around? I mean, what are you guys going to do? I just don't understand. I just think it's inexcusable to sell this land, to put that many houses on it. Also, when the existing school system is clearly struggling. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica, for your comments. Leo, go ahead.
Hello? Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Go ahead, Leo.
This is Laura Fujikawa. Dear Board of Trustees, as a parent of former Glider students and a protective neighbor of Glider School, I would like to express my dissatisfaction with you trustees whose actions have defied the core values of Oak Grove School District. You have time and time again shown the Glider community that you do not value, nor do you choose to act in a cooperative environment of mutual support, teamwork, shared responsibility, and success. Do those words sound familiar? That's what you project to the community in your mission statements. These words ring hollow to me. Emails imploring you to share basic information have been ignored. Offers to discuss opportunities to communicate with bona fide financial advisors, not a realtor, have been disregarded, as have offers to learn from the president of the Union School Board of Trustees about ways to engage in long-term 99+ year leases to ensure income beyond your and my lifetime. Do you have something to hide? As a community member, I do not see evidence that a positive interdependence is a concept that you embrace, let alone understand. You tell us that you're going to solve a $25 million deficit through the sale of the Glider property, but then which school property will you sell next in a few years when that money is spent? Evidence of ethical and honest interactions have been absent in such processes as awarding contracts. I was appalled when you chose not to seek bids for projects, even when reminded by a respected long-term former trustee to honor the process. In one instance, a $200,000 contract was awarded to a former employee of Oak Grove School District without a bid. Should Mr. Monzo have recused himself from this decision? Well, he didn't, but instead he chose to put pressure on the trustees to vote in favor of the proposals, which you trustees willingly did. Where is your sense of duty and commitment to your constituents? The lack of transparency that we have experienced since dealing with you trustees has been inconceivable and frustrating. It leads one to wonder what you are trying to hide in this deal with True Life. You are all complicit in a deal that has the potential to rob our neighborhood of its ability to provide for a healthy educational environment for our children and our children's children. Please ask yourselves, is this the best deal for you 5 trustees and Mr. Monzo? Because this is certainly not the best deal for the neighborhood, children, both present and future. Once this property is gone, there will be no turning back. Reject this offer to
Thank you. Sidar?
Hello, respected board members. I want to express how disappointed I am with this decision about the Glider sale. You have completely ignored all the needs of the community, all the issues that we raised, including where our kids are going to go to school. One of the facts I want to point out is 5 years ago, the average classroom size used to be 25. Now there's 33, at least at Taylor School. And I just heard one community member say there's up to 48 in one class. So definitely you're not solving the education problem for the society or for the community. But I don't know, maybe you're just looking at the housing problem of California. which I think is not your job. You are taking advice from somebody who is just going to make money out of this and go away and just disappear. He has no interest in, again, solving the education problems of our community. We are a group of over 1,000 people who, totally oppose this. And, this is something we will fight till the end. And what I hope is we are not in a position where, something like this is caught in litigation for years and years. And what you won't be able to do, or anybody will be able to do, is reopen a school in that land. So you may sell this today, but if somebody cannot even make housing there or anything, it's just going to be stuck there, and it will not be available for a school. Thank you.
Thank you. Sagar, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
For giving me opportunity to speak. I think the whole school district has a very short-term vision about selling of this property. I think every neighborhood goes through the cycle of reducing the student counts. But if you see last 3-4 years, we see so much of sale of new property in our or real estate in our neighborhood, and all those who are coming are young families. They have young kids. So I'm very sure few years down the line, right now Sakamoto and Taylor are already kind of beyond their capacity, and you will need a school for these young kids. And once you sell this property, there is no way to go back. I think the board is looking at the 25 million and 26 million, which itself is, for me, I don't understand how can you sell at such a low price, and that is very short-term vision. You can lease it to some school, or you can to some other business for next few years. But when you always have option of going back and starting school again there. Once you sell it to any real estate, it's gone. And the families who are going to come there, they will have kids. You don't have, and they're going to get they're going to get into the Sakamotos and Taylors, and they will be getting overcrowded more. So I think that's very short-term vision. I strongly oppose as a neighborhood parent. My kids goes at Sakamoto right now, and I can see the kind of getting that school is getting really crowded. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, John Cook.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you for allowing me to speak to you board members tonight. I really do appreciate the opportunity. This is the first time I've really engaged in this process directly with the board. I had written out kind of a long speech, which I was going to ramble through really quickly in 3 minutes, but I think a lot of the things that I wanted to highlight have already been mentioned. When I logged onto this meeting, actually I've cried 2 times during this meeting already, so I'm pretty emotional, which, considering I'm a corporate executive, I'm a CPA, I'm a controller, I'm a numbers guy, I do wear my heart on my sleeve. And if you don't cry when Anson talks about playing with his friends, I don't get it. Secondly, I think it's appropriate to recognize the indigenous people that lived on this land and took care of this land before the board, quote unquote, owns it. Ownership would be an interesting concept for the people that originally resided on this land. And the fact that if they were to come back, they would be terrified and horrified that we had built this high density, quite honestly, ugly piece of addition to our neighborhood. I think you will have to change the logo for the Oak Grove School District. I've never really looked at it, but it's 3 children looking up at the clouds against the foothills. That image will be gone forever. It's no longer going to exist. Sorry, I'm just kind of rambling because I'm not going to go through my prepared speech, but in the last 72 hours, I've been on 3 Zoom calls with neighborhood I've been a pretty passive member. I've seen Janet and Megan and Carlos and others really go through extra strides to speak from a win-win position, to speak from a logic, to speak from a finance perspective, to speak about enrollment. That all comes from a place of love. 48 hours ago, we went from a place of love to we went to a place of combativeness. I think this community is ready for a fight. And that was indicated by myself, as well as I think about 18 other families in the course of 8 minutes, pledged over $17,000 to a war chest. And we call it a war chest because I'm pretty well connected in this valley, and we are interviewing attorneys, and we will make it challenging, working with Matt Mahan, working with attorneys that deal with governmental fraud.
Thank you. Go ahead, Gorish.
Yeah, thank you again for giving the opportunity. I'd like to keep it short because I already spoke previously. I just want to echo what all of my neighbors have said in this 3 minutes of time that they're getting. I honestly think that you guys have to take a look at the contract in detail a little bit more and figure out what is required for the neighborhood here. And Carla, you are the new board president. You are our district trustee. You have, rather you should answer our questions first, even before getting this under your watch. Please answer our questions. If not all, at least answer some of our questions. And once you do that, that's when you want to go ahead with this process. When Mansa mentioned that there was a minor interest in the property, in the last 3 years, if we had taken that into consideration, you probably would have, I don't know, gotten 30% of the deficit already. You never know. What did you guys do with that minor interest? Did it not solve at least some of your problems? I mean, are you like 0 or 1? Is that means you have to get your 25 million deficit at a go, or you don't have to get a go? I mean, you could have done something with that minor interest and gone ahead and reduced the 26 million by now. Why did you guys do that? I mean, you guys are selling an appreciating asset in the Bay Area. I mean, have you those words should ring in your head that you're selling an appreciating asset. It's impossible. I mean, it's a 101 in finance industry, in finance books, that you do not sell an appreciating asset, and you guys are doing it. You're ruining the neighborhood. You're ruining the education for all the upcoming kids in this neighborhood. You cannot do this. And Carla, you are a district trustee. You have to answer questions. You cannot do this under your watch. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gorish, for your comments. I see Janet Williams. Go ahead, Janet.
We've seen repeated instances of you board members making shallow decisions based on recommendations from the superintendent or social causes without exploring the opposite viewpoints. You voted to end the police contract without discussing why it was implemented in the first place. You selected a new board member based on racial diversity instead of diversity of thought. You worked on a resolution regarding reproductive rights for elementary students without consideration of the controversial nature of women's health. We've seen you award contracts and renew long-term leases without going out for a second bid, which is best practice to ensure best rates. We are afraid that you're giving this weighty and permanent sale decision the same one-sided considerations. While you heard some feedback at our insistence, you have not secured a second independent consultant, nor reached out to consultants and other elementary school district leaders that take the position that properties should never be sold to understand their point of view in introducing diversity of thought to your decision. Anytime you provided rationale, including points we heard tonight, we had counter questions and counterpoints, most of which you ignore and do not resolve. Doesn't the sale of a multi-million-dollar asset with income earning potential that will affect generations of students to come and the financial health of the entire school district budget deserve more due diligence and more time for analysis? You should know that the neighbor engagement at our community meetings grew exponentially this week. Every household was invited to our survey by doorstep flyers. Will you ignore 98% of respondents who ask for a second opinion from an independent consultant? 96% are against the housing specifications in the contract. Did you notice more people agree to the development if lot sizes and open space was greater? I sent you the results to every question. Have you read the results? What action can you take given this survey's feedback? Clearly, there is more work to do. You are not ready to vote. You need to vote no today. We are talking with law firms, getting input and advice, and have $15,000 set aside for legal fees within the first 48 hours of fundraising. We have the recall packet from the county reviewed and at the ready if this sale goes through. We are organized and prepared to petition the city council to reject your PQP conversion and development plan. You need community support to have approval at the city level. You are not ready to vote. This contract is not the right fit. You need to vote no on today's contract.
Thank you, Janet. John Wolf. Go ahead, John.
Thank you. Thank you very much for listening. I want to second all the opinions that my neighbors have expressed tonight. There's really nothing I can add to that, except one thing. Before you guys vote to sell Glider, I would ask that you take 1 minute to consider if you lived next door to Glider, would you vote to do this? Because it's going to impact hundreds of families here. It's going to lower our property values, and the amount of money that you're getting is inconsequential to what could be gained if another proposal was accepted. Those proposals have been presented to you, and you just seem to ignore them. We just don't understand how you can proceed with so much angst against you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. Go ahead, Mega. Or Meg.
Good evening, board members. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
I have nothing really to add, but I just, again, my concern, as like everyone else's, I'm just baffled, saddened by everything that's been going for the past couple of months. We've continued to show our dissatisfaction against the sale of Glider, which is pretty much evident, as you must have seen, but seeing the contract in front of my eyes, it just shocked me that nothing has really mattered to you. You guys are ruining our lives here, as my neighbor before me correctly pointed out, that if you were here, you would never have voted for sale of Glider. It's just unbelievable. I really cannot imagine the day when I bought a house next to Glider thinking my kids would be going there, and they went. It closed. They started going to Taylor. It's just, I have no words. I would again, with folded hands, request you to reject this proposal. Please, please consider once again. It's not going to come back. The space is not going to come back once it's taken away. Thanks.
Thank you. I see Andy. Go ahead, Andy.
I'm very shocked to hear that many of you are not going to run again for position, and you're going to take action that's going to cause such tremendous detriment to this community. Carla, I went on your website tonight to see your position on gaining a position on this board, okay? It clearly does not speak to the cannibalization of an institute in our community, surely to remedy a debt, okay? You seem to be a woman of tremendous power and are quite articulate. I'm very surprised you were not able to lead this group to come up with an alternative solution, okay? I'm a researcher and an inventor. I take great pride on making a mark on the earth that's positive. There is nothing positive about the action you're about to take. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andy. I see Rob. Go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, I'd like to say that the school board has had more than 6 months of time working on this contract, and the community has just days to review. This appears to be intentional here. I don't know how you guys can call this an equitable process. Along with that, a very small amount of info was shared with the surrounding neighborhood community members during the last year. And of course, as you know, many requests for info and details went unanswered and still remains unanswered. The board also refused to engage in the long-term financial analysis. And you guys instead utilize a commission-based realtor, which raises great concerns of conflict of interest here. This is absolutely unacceptable. And now, even it's a concern of a San Jose City Council member. That's the legitimacy of the process followed by the school district. These details for this plan outlined in the current proposal does not match the surrounding neighborhood zoning. It's absolutely a detriment to our community, causing overcrowding, parking issues, traffic unfit for current design of the existing streets, and a great strain on our utilities. And I would like to hear you guys on the board answer that question if you live next door to glider property, how you would vote. We also had a survey, 130 local respondents, 95% saying that the school board has not been transparent. 99% responded there should be an independent financial consultant hired to review the proposed sale. A petition was distributed and resulted in more than 800 signatures to stop the property sale. But still, the school district is deaf to this. This is a very short-sighted plan, puts immediate desire for money for a temporary budget fix at the expense of school resources for our children that are now in overcrowded classrooms in surrounding schools. This process and procedures by the school district board leading up to the current proposed contract has been characterized by, and I'm sure everybody agrees, very questionable special interest motives. And the surrounding community members will be utilizing all legal resources and representation available to rectify this injustice going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. I see Vijay.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Go ahead. Yes, I can. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I echo the sentiments of my fellow community members. And I agree with all the points they have made so far. You all, as in the members of the board, have clearly not taken the community in confidence. And we are ready to explore all options available to us to make sure that our voices are heard. In the name of community engagement, what all you have done is send meeting invites without enough information, like missing password or meeting IDs. Right? In the name of community engagement, what you do is Mr. Manzo did one-way communication, and that was the first engagement, and that was one way without hearing the community feedback. And we have given you feedback in many ways. We have sent multiple emails, multiple points have been mentioned, but all have been ignored so far. So we are ready to explore all the options, and we will make sure that our voices are heard. I request all the members, all of you, to please vote no for today's vote. Give yourself some time to rethink independently without coming under others' influence. Think independently and decide what you want to do today. With that request, thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. John Coyle.
Hi, I'm a community member and an Oak Grove parent, and I'm not going to say anything you haven't already heard. But you do need to hear the quantity of complaints. And I truly hope that you're actively listening to these people and myself. We're extremely frustrated and disappointed at how quickly the situation has moved to contract. We've repeatedly asked for the district to slow down its decision-making process, to involve the community, and at least appear to look at options other than selling. And even if it was selling, appear to look at options other than the 4 that were given. But all to no avail. We firmly believe the garage selling of the property below market value is extremely short-term answer to a long-term issue. Essentially only partially plugging a hole and providing no forward momentum or future planning for the district, especially since the 7-11 committee and Councilmember Mahan have recommended against it. The whole point of a board is for checks and balances, as well as bringing insight and wisdom to a decision-making process. And we've not seen anything like that at all in any of this glider negotiation. Everybody is just going along with the flow. It's like a riptide that's just carrying everybody, and nobody is stopping to look up and see what other options can be had. And add to that, the lack of transparency is highly problematic. We ask again, please press pause, be open and transparent about the data you've used to make your decisions, as well as the different options that you've considered. We just want a genuine open conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. I see Kevin, go ahead and share your comments, Kevin.
Can you hear me?
I can, thank you.
Yes, I was born and raised over here, went to Taylor. My wife and I actually moved right across from the school. That was 2017. And then we were here for the last year that the school was open. We were against the closing. We, again, now have a daughter, and we're expecting to have a family and have our children go to the school across the street. Again, we see on a daily basis how much this asset is a community asset, with community coming over there, kids playing, riding their bikes, and using this as a recreation space. Again, I really would wish that you guys can actually pause and take a open, transparent process and keep the community involved, because this is a community asset and it should be a community decision. And we should be comfortable with what that decision is. And again, I really hope that you guys can really pause and be a leader, not only for our community, but our kids, to understand that you should really make it a informed decision and understand the consequences if you make a decision without understanding all the ramifications of long term. And if a decision is made to sell the property, I'm one with our family and others that are looking with legal action to make sure that this won't go forward.
Okay, Kevin, thank you. I don't see any other public comments at this time, Rochelle, am I correct?
Correct.
Okay, so at this time, that concludes the public comments for item 7.1, our first action item of the night. At this time, we are going to move to trustee comments and questions. And so are there any trustee comments or questions at this time?
I can start. So I just want to thank everybody that took the time to speak to us today. And I know that the things that I was looking for in a contract are present in this contract. And I tried to make sure that, I think not just I think the board tried to make sure that we were as responsive to some of the concerns that we've been hearing, such as when it comes to open space. We made sure that there was a open space concept in this contract. When it talks about density, we wanted to make sure that was something also that we felt was conducive to the local neighborhood. When it comes to community engagement, we wanted to make sure that the developer was going to do that, and that's what's in the contract. When I balance the decision to make the sale or not, I think back to the important decision that trustees have made back in 2007, which was the sale of the Calero School. That sale and the revenues from that sale have sustained our district for not just 3 years, as some of the members of the public have been saying. Like they're saying that the $26 million of this sale will be depleted in like 3 years. The Calero revenue, the Calero sale created a special reserve for this school district that has maintained our district through very tough times, especially considering that we have no control over dropping enrollment, which has been going on for over 27 years in our district. We have no control over divestment from the state or fluctuating fiscal situations from the state. That's beyond our control. We have no control over all of these dynamics that impact the day-to-day operations of our school district, but we do have the ability to ameliorate the impacts of those fiscal situations, which is why trustees in 2007 took that decision, and it's sustained us through this amount of time. And I'm hopeful that this is going to be another decision that will sustain the full district, the entire district, and all of our operations, our programs, our classrooms, our curricula, through another long-term era of our district. So for me, that's what I see when I look at this sale, and I wanted to be very transparent about that. I think I've always have been with community members that have engaged with me and I them. So I know that I will be voting in favor of this contract because because the sale will lead to help for our district for a long time, just as the Calero sale did in 2007. It's the full fiscal impact and stability and solvency of our district that I have in mind. 26 million is not a small amount, especially considering that the Calero fund was over 20 million as well, and that has sustained our district for over 15 years. So we are thinking long-term. I'm thinking long-term, and I'm hopeful that this sale will lead us to better fiscal situations in the future, considering all the things that are beyond our control, especially with drop in enrollment. Also considering that with more development in our neighborhoods, that will bring more families in, especially considering that we are experiencing a drop of enrollment for the last 27 years. So with that, I will conclude my comments, and thank you, President Hernandez, for calling on me.
Of course, thank you, Member Pacheco. Any other board comments at this time? Okay, if not, I would just like to echo a lot of what Member Pacheco was saying. I do want to just make space to share that I know that this is a difficult decision, and it's hard to be on the other side as the public when we're making these decisions. But at the heart of it, it is thinking about our students and the long-term vision of our school district. That is what we are entrusted to do. And so I think for me, I was listening to the community engagement that was needed, and I was happy to see that in the contract. I'm happy to see a developer that was more than ready to take that responsibility on, that I do think is critical. And so there were some significant parts of this contract that I think, to me, was us advocating at the table for those things to make it on the contract. And so with that, again, I just want to say I want to thank the community for all their engagement, the board, your attention to detail on this matter, and the hard work that everybody has put in to try to make it be as fair as a contract that we could. So if there are no other board comments at this time, we do have a first and second. So at this time, I will ask Rochelle if we can have a roll call vote.
Member Yu?
Can I actually say some things, Carla?
Of course.
I'm sorry. I think, I came into the middle of this. And I think when I listen to the community members, their responses are very, emotional, right? Like they love the community. I love my community. I don't want to see any changes happening either. But I think for me, I really have to kind of remove the emotional aspect from the decision making that we as board members have to do. And I know it's really hard. So I think a couple of things for me as I'm thinking about the glider issue. I think for me, number one is, yes, I wish that we had a leasing option, right? Like the glider property, yes, I also see it as an income producing asset, but if there's no one there if there's no leasing options available for us to consider, it's not really an income producing asset then. It just kind of sits there. I think the other thing that I've kind of been thinking about is that I need to think about the district as a whole, right? And the glider community is one part of the whole Oak Grove School District. So that's another piece that I'm thinking about as we're looking at this contract. The other thing is, we have been hearing about, the density issue. And I know that, when this was kind of first out there, the comments were, we don't want affordable housing, we don't want high density, we don't want apartments, we don't want these multi-units. And that's not what I see in the contract right now. So I think for me, when I think about all those things, and we also did, push for that open space, and, it is in the contract as well. So I think with all those things in mind, I think this is, I think I'm also in favor of the contract.
Yeah, if I could just chime in, I'd really like to, first of all, thank the community. I know that this is, again, we've reiterated it many times, it has been a very tough decision, but I'd like to, my heart out to the board, right? We've come under a lot of criticism, sometimes professional, sometimes personal, as I've seen tonight. And I think, in all honesty, I think there's more to meet the eye. And I hope the community can see that, because what maybe obviously you have not seen is the way that this board has really advocated for that community behind the scenes, is the way that we've constantly nitpicked at the language and constantly gone back and put your feedback into this contract and really advocated for you. So I just want to say thank you to the board. We've seen, there's been times when there's like, oh, one more question and we're closing in at 10 o'clock, right? Because we have the community in mind. I know this has been a hard decision, but I definitely appreciate your guys' work in keeping the idea of, right, the holistic view of this district in mind when making these decisions.
Thank you, members. Any other comments from trustees at this time? Okay. If none, again, Rochelle, if we could have that roll call vote.
Member Yu,
Aye.
Member Pacheco,
Aye.
Member Moore,
Aye.
Vice President Gonzalez,
Aye.
President Hernandez,
Aye.
motion carries.
Okay, thank you all. That concludes action item 7.1. This leads us to action item 7.2, boundary adjustment to adopted trustee voting areas. Superintendent Monzo, could you please present this item?
Yes, President Hernandez. This item actually came before the board on a couple of occasions. And at the last time that the item was brought was in December 9th, where the board voted to approve option C for trustee areas. As mentioned during that board meeting, the maps would be submitted to the Register of Voters for any additional feedback or comments on that process. We did get some feedback and comment on a couple of areas for the trustee maps. And Rochelle, are you able to share the first map, please?
Just a minute.
So basically, the two areas of feedback from the Register of Voters was clarification on a boundary related to trustee area 5, which is it's kind of like the peach color or light brown color in the very top part. And so you see kind of a jagged part at the very bottom southern part of the boundary. There was a sliver that was missing on the top part, trustee area 5. There you go, that area. And so we modified it to reflect the current boundary. And then there was an area in the bottom part in trustee area 4, where the Register of Voters had a slight revision based on their records to that trustee area. That is in that area that Rochelle is highlighting there. In the top area, trustee area 5, as you remember, part of going through this exercise is to try to create population parity between each trustee area. And so long as that you're within a 10% differential between the lowest populated trustee area and the highest populated trustee area, then you're within the guidelines to move forward. And so the trustee area 5 doesn't change any of the population because all of that is hillside and there are no residences there. And so it doesn't change anything related to the population density for that area. In trustee area 4, there are a few homes in that area that are removed from trustee area 4, which are part of the San Jose Unified area. Also, that area is in a more of a hillside section of the city. And so there aren't very many homes there. And so the population variance for that property or for that area was a difference of 68. And so the if you can go to the next map, Rochelle. So that area there was what was highlighted. Okay, and then the next map, Rochelle. And so the difference between, just to show the numbers that were originally shown to you, the difference between trustee area 4 was a variance of 68. And so it reduced the population for trustee area 4 by 68, but it didn't change at all the trustee area of area 5. And it still fell within that 3.9% variance between the highest populated area, which was trustee area 1, and then trustee area 4, the lowest populated area. Okay, so with that, we will, with the consideration of the board, we would recommend that the board approve the revisions that were suggested by the Register of Voters and pass this resolution identifying the affirmation of the district boundaries for each of the trustee areas. So with that, I'd like to make a recommendation to approve.
Thank you, Superintendent Mansell, for your presentation. So at this time, are there any public comments? Oh, sorry. May I have a motion and a second? Okay, I will go ahead and move that the Board of Trustees recognize and approve trustee area map C with 2 perimeter adjustments in trustee area 4 and 5 and adopt resolution 1396-0122 as presented. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you, Member Moore. So at this time, we will move on to public comments on item 7.2. Are there any public comments?
There's no public comment.
Okay, thank you, Rochelle. Any questions or comments from trustees? Okay, seeing none, we have a first and second. May I please have a roll call vote?
Member Yule?
Aye.
Member Pacheco?
Aye.
Member Moore?
Aye.
Vice President Gonzalez?
Aye.
President Hernandez?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you so much, Rochelle. This now brings us to item 7.3 through 7.6, the awards of pre-construction services and leaseback agreements. I will now turn it over to Superintendent Monzo, if you can please introduce these items.
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you, President Hernandez. Again, in prior board meetings, at the December meeting and the prior meeting to that, we provided information regarding the modernization, continuing the modernization projects for our district. We had a year where we didn't, due to COVID, have any modernization for upgrades to our facilities. We have, and we would make these improvements with bond funds, when bond dollars that are specifically targeted for facility improvements for the district. And so, so again, as part of the process of making sure that we are ready for the work to begin during the summer for these projects, that we are recommending the leaseback agreements. And you'll notice from 7.3 to 7.6, commonality in terms of the contracts, and just the difference in the names of the schools represented in each of those projects. And so these all were bid publicly, and the selection of the lowest bidder was selected in each of these agreements. For any additional and further explanation on this item, I'd like to turn it over to our interim assistant superintendent of business services, Ms. Laura Fan.
Good evening, board, and thank you, Superintendent, for providing the background to these items. So since Superintendent Monzo mentioned that items 7.3 through 7.6 have commonality, they are all lease-back method of construction. As of this time, we do not yet have a design for the proposed streetscape at Frost Indigo. It's very preliminary. We also do not have DSA approval on any of the design because obviously we have just gotten started with board approval of these planned projects for next summer. So at this point, in order to proceed, we can only issue bids for lease-back contract agreement on a fee-based basis. Once DSA, the Division of State Architects, approve our plans, our modernizations, drawings, and plans, we will work with the general contractor to bid out the subcontract to their subcontract to the different trades, and we will bring back to the board for approval the final guaranteed maximum price for each project at that time. We estimate that to be around the May timeframe. As proposal, let's starting with 7.3, the item on up for a vote right now is the roofing, HVAC, and seismic work at Burnell Intermediate School. The award, we review all of our leaseback, the RFP and the contracts were all prepared by district legal counsel. We received 3 proposals from Block Construction Company, Strawn Construction Inc., and Rodan Construction Inc. Out of those 3 proposals, Block Construction Company came in with the highest best value ranking, including the lowest fee, proposed fee of 3.95%. I submit to you and make the recommendations that board approve item 7.3, awarding the bid proposal to block constructions for the leaseback contract of roofing HVAC project at Burnell Intermediate School.
Thank you, Assistant Superintendent Fan, and you'll probably hear the very similar explanation on each of these items. And in consideration of the time, if the board wishes to do so, we'd like to recommend that you take items 7.3 to 7.6 as one item and vote. We can certainly talk or ask questions on any of the items, but it's up to your consideration, Ms. Hernandez. We can take it one at a time, or we can take them as a group, since they're similar in terms of both the explanation and the contents of the documents as well.
Yeah, I'm certainly okay with that. And with that, I can go ahead and make the first motion. And so at this time, I move that the Board of Trustees award the pre-construction services leaseback agreement, site lease and sublease for items 7.3, 7.4, 7.5, and 7.6 to Black Construction, Inc. as presented. Do we have a second at this time?
I second.
Okay, thank you, Member Pacheco. Are there any public comments for items 7.3 to 7.6?
There are no comments.
Okay, seeing no public comments, are there any questions or comments from trustees? Okay, I don't think I'm seeing any. So we have a first and second. May I please have a roll call vote?
Member Yu?
Aye.
Member Pacheco?
Aye.
Member Moore?
Aye.
Vice President Gonzalez?
Aye.
President Hernandez?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you so much. That now concludes 7.3 to 7.6. That brings us to action item 7.7, a regular board meeting date change. Superintendent Manzo, could you please present this item?
Yes, thank you, President Hernandez. And so at the December meeting, as you're aware, the board was in their organizational meeting that established the various board meetings for the year. And there is a need for a revision to the schedule. And that is that the Board of Trustees rescheduled the April 21st board meeting to April 14th. As this week is within the week of our Easter break, or the spring break, I should say. And so in order to allow our staff and or members of our community to be able to participate when they're not on vacation, we request that the board consider and recommend approval of the modification to the schedule to change the April 21st, 2022 regular board meeting to April 14, 2022.
Okay, thank you, Superintendent Manso. At this time, may we please have a first or second for a motion?
I motion that we change the meeting for April from the third Thursday to the second Thursday.
Thank you, Member Moore. Okay, thank you, Member Gonzalez or Vice President Gonzalez. Do we have any public comments for item 7.7, Rochelle?
No public comment.
Any questions or comments from trustees? Okay, we have a first and second. May I have a roll call vote, please?
Member Yu?
Aye.
Member Pacheco?
Aye.
Member Moore?
Aye.
Vice President Gonzalez?
Aye.
President Hernandez?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. That does conclude our item 7 and all the action items there, which brings us to item 8.1, opening schools together / COVID-19 updates. Assistant Superintendent Bowles, I will pass it on to you to make this presentation.
Thank you so much,
Mhm.
President Hernandez and Vice President Gonzalez. I'll turn it over to Superintendent Monzo just to do some introductions to the item, and then I'll be happy to take on from there. Thank you.
Thank you. Just very briefly, as mentioned earlier, as part of my opening comments, and as you've heard, some feedback from Bob and Maripaz, President Berlin and Vice President Perola, that the landscape, we recognize it's been a challenge and it continues to shift on us. It seems on a constant basis. I just want to reassure both our board and also our bargaining groups that we remain committed to continue to collaborate and work closely as we make our way through the changes and the shifts that our system has to make in order to do the very best that we can for our district, for our students, for our staff. And I know that sometimes it seems that we can't land at 100% for everybody in our entire large community, whether it's our parent community, our staff community, and our student community. But I can assure you it will be a continued commitment from our team, and I know that Ms. Bowles and Mr. Chaitis have that shared commitment to always collaborate and work through whatever those challenges are. And so with that, I'd like to turn it over to Ms. Bowles to complete the item and present this information to our board.
Thank you, Superintendent Monzo. I appreciate this opportunity to share with the board and the community some of our updates from COVID. It's certainly been a month of updates and information. So I appreciate Assistant Superintendent Chayida sharing the screen here. So here we have January 2022 of our monthly updates to the board around COVID-19 and opening and keeping open our schools together through this school year. Next slide, please. So we're going to start with local, state, and county COVID data points. This is similar cadence to past meetings, and the first slide here represents data from the state of California. This data is as of January 13th, and you can see here just the graph as well as the numbers regards to the total number of cases and deaths in California and the percentage of the population that's fully vaccinated. Next slide, please. Here you'll see specific data and information to Santa Clara County, COVID-19 data. This data is as of January 20th. I do want to point out that the data that was provided for you in your board packets to meet the time frame of the board doc upload was from last week, but here you'll see for the community and for yourselves tonight for this meeting, updated data as of today. So cumulative 7-day average of new cases, I wanted to highlight in December 1st was 162. You'll see here that the cumulative 7-day average of new cases is today, as of today, 4,609 in the county. So you can see that Delta really represents the impact of Omicron over just a month and a week or so. You see here the totals of cumulative COVID-19 deaths in the county, and that 83% of our population is vaccinated. Next slide, please. Then that'll take us to our more local district vaccination rate updates. And you can see here that 95.5% of our total employees as of now have submitted proof of vaccination. That's a 0.5% increase from last month. And then we are also excited to share that coming soon, we are expanding our COVID testing for all employees, both antigen and PCR testing in partnership with COVID Clinic. We did reopen PCR testing available to all staff members in the boardroom as of last week, and we are now working to expand that to antigen testing as well. Next slide, please. So our current OGSD COVID-19 dashboard numbers are in the slides following. And again, this is updated as of today, representing all of the cases up through last week. So the dashboard on our website is updated weekly. And you see here the staff totals as well as student totals. And again, you can find that right on that button, the COVID-19 response button right on our main website landing page. Next slide, please. Student vaccination and testing updates for you. Just to remind the community and just reminding our parents that COVID-19 vaccines are available for everyone ages 5 and up, as well as the boosters. Everyone 12 and older can get the booster. Just some information here on what to expect when you're booking an appointment. Next slide, please. And also locally in our district, we've been able to provide pop-up clinics. We've had 4 up to today. Actually, we had Anderson's this week, and so that was really exciting. And the county public health has now allowed us to widen that vaccine availability, not just to that school community, but to the entire Oak Grove community. And just hot off the press today, as of today, we added Baldwin for January 27th. So the community can look forward to that other opportunity for booster shots as well as vaccine shots. And then that mobile clinic will come back 2 weeks later to give that second dose. So we're excited that we were just able to add Baldwin today. Thank you. And then I wanted to give you some information updates from the Santa Clara County Public Health Department and CDPH. Superintendent Monzo did speak to this new guidance that came from the County Public Health and Dr. Dewan, our County Superintendent's guidance that was shared with us last Friday. I do want to point out, as President Berlin from OGEA mentioned, we currently are aware that CTA, their legal team, has reached out for further clarification and communication with County Superintendent Dr. Dewan. So we await the effects of that guidance also, so that we can respond accordingly. And I'll speak a little more to that here as well. Throughout this month, some of the key guidance updates that we've received from the county and from the state is that as of January, students can now submit, or parents can submit for their students, results of at-home antigen tests. So they can do that. We have provided links for families to be able to take a picture, as well as some directions and how they can share those results with us. You may have also seen the joint statement, the video's joint statement from Dr. Dewan and Dr. Cody about their commitment to keeping county schools open. So we received that on the 7th at the beginning of the month. We also received updates, I believe it was in late December, early January, about CDPH guidance also changing, and what the quarantine guidance is, going from 10 days to 5 days. If symptoms are improving, people are fever-free, and if they submit a negative test on day 5, the isolation can now end on day 6. We have just started implementing that this week, gave us a couple of weeks to really understand that guidance before we rolled it out to our staff and to our students. And so our nurses have been in contact with our families around that new guidance. Of course, if students and staff decide not to test, they would just isolate for that full 10 days instead of having the option of returning earlier, meeting that criteria again of the negative test on day 5 or after, asymptomatic, and improving symptoms and fever-free. I think I mentioned to you last week at the special board meeting that we did receive information that Governor Newsom announced providing more PPE to our schools and our communities, in particular N95 masks. The original communication that we received pointed to a 10-day supply for all students and staff. We recently heard a further clarification to that. Notification that elementary school districts would be receiving N95 masks based on staff allocations, and that it was going to be schools with high school students and staff that would get them for students. So we did receive 5,620 masks from the Santa Clara County Office of Education for staff based on our staff allocation, and we'll be working on distributing that throughout the district in the coming days. Next slide, please. So I alluded to this earlier. The first bullet point there is that updated CDPH guidance where isolation can end after day 5. We received that earlier in the month and just started implementing this guidance this week for staff and students. And so that gives the opportunity for any students and staff who are symptom-free to come back earlier and shorten their isolation period. But again, they do need to submit a negative test result from day 5 or afterwards from exposure. The other one here is the one that we have been mentioning to you in regards to some notification we received from California Department of Public Health and the County Public Health Department about revised guidance in which they're giving alternative ways to notify during the surge of Omicron. We did share this out with our Oak Grove staff, actually yesterday afternoon. We shared that as a point of information, but then did highlight that the district, however, will continue to track all cases and send broad group exposure notices and offer daily walk-up testing for students and staff. So since the beginning, Oak Grove has always sent a notification letter when there's a positive case to the entire class. Other districts have done kind of contact tracing to just identify which students or staff members have been within 6 feet of that student. We have always, since the beginning, sent it out to the entire class because we wanted to be conservative in our identification of who's been exposed. Also making sure that we send it, of course, to any, through contact tracing, any of our itinerant staff, or if the students have been in other classrooms. We have a system where we've been contact tracing to ensure to the best of our ability that we notify anybody who has been exposed or in close contact to the student. So that isn't changing for Oak Grove. We have always done that for the entire class. One of the things that we have talked about in response to this guidance, and again, we acknowledge that CTA has sent a letter from their legal team, so we definitely want to wait and make sure that we fully understand the effects of that communication. But one of the things that we did want consider with all of the notifications that have gone out is that we have in addition given a separate notification to other classes at that grade level that there was an exposure at the grade level. So that was creating some confusion from some parents where they would get an exposure notice of somebody positive in their child's class. And on the same day, they may get a notification that they were exposed to a student in another classroom at the grade level, not necessarily a close contact, but just notifying them that there was another positive case. So our idea was to pause that so that the parents wouldn't get confused by getting contrasting messages, quite possibly on the same day. Our intent has always been to keep to notifications of any students who are in the same class of the positive COVID case. But again, as we've mentioned, we understand that there is ongoing communication between CTA, Public Health, and the County Superintendent. So we'll make sure to stay abreast of all of that and how we can revise if necessary or adapt. Here are some bullet points about the Omicron variant and what we know about the Omicron variant. And we're just continuing to recommend that everybody follows masking, outdoor masking now in Oak Grove, as well as all other safety mitigation strategies, and encouraging weekly testing of all of our students and staff. Next slide, please. So information updates from OGSD, as Superintendent Monzo mentioned, and as President Berlin mentioned, we have been in constant communication with our labor groups, our community, our parents to make adaptations, both responsive and proactive to what's going on right now with the Omicron variant. We were excited to be able to provide a distribution day of at-home kits at the beginning, even before the school resumed after the break, distributed approximately 5,000. Next slide, please. And we did implement the outdoor mask policy, and that started on January 10th with some communication to the families even the week prior so that they could prepare. We were highlighted on ABC News about our outdoor masking policy that was initiated this month. And then, as I mentioned, we are making available the KN95 masks to schools, as well as N95 masks that we are receiving from the state so that we can support our staff, in particular our front office staff, our health workers, and our teachers serving students in categorical special education programs, where sometimes masking may not be as, may be a bit more of a challenge for some of our students, even with all of the reminders and the guidance in those classes. Next slide, please. We've also worked to increase communication to staff and the community on relevant information in regards to COVID. Superintendent Monzo made a video also just recognizing the efforts of everybody through the system, through this unprecedented wave and this Omicron variant. And as well, just through the surge, our ESD department has been providing a weekly, just one pager organized update of the nitty-gritty, most important points that we want all of our staff to know. So that was sent out yesterday as well as the week prior on Wednesday, and we'll send out another one next week and throughout the surge. HEPA filters have been ordered, and we have heard from our vendor that they're expected to arrive midweek next week with a day turnaround, hopefully, in getting to us. So we'll be working to get those distributed as soon as we get them. VPLS is now at all of our, at two sites every single day. And we're able to extend the Academy at Davis site to longer hours. So it is open until 5 o'clock with the last administered test at 4:45. We're also working with VPLS for Saturday testing, as well as testing during the February break. And our district office, as I mentioned, reopened PCR testing last week for staff, and we are working on an additional contract with COVID Clinic to provide that antigen testing for our staff members as well in the boardroom. Next slide, please. All that being said, this is something that we have to continually come back around to review, to reflect on, and to adapt as things are changing. As COVID changes, we change. So our next steps are to continue to collaborate with our 3 bargaining units. We've been in communication with them and really do appreciate the perspectives that they bring to us as and how these effects trickle down into the classroom. It's really, really valuable information. We'll continue to provide free COVID-19 testing available to students and employees through BayPLS. Attend county COVID designee meetings for updates. We've been going to those frequently. In fact, we had one just today that I know that our coordinators, COVID coordinators went to. Stay current on vaccine requirements and COVID procedures from the county and state, and then communicate with staff in the Oak Grove community with resources and information. And we do appreciate everyone's willingness to go through, sift through all that communication. We know it's been a lot, but we really want to stay committed to giving everybody all the resources and the information they need during this time. So that concludes the information presentation that I have for you, but I'm happy to entertain any questions at this time to help with anything that might need some additional information. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Assistant Superintendent Bowles. Are there any public comments at this time before we move on to trustee comments and questions?
Bob Frola.
Go ahead, Bob. Thank you.
Good evening, board. Can you hear me, Carla?
I can. Yep.
Thank
Go
you.
ahead.
All right. So I want to give credit where credit is due, and I appreciate Assistant Superintendent Amy Bowles taking the time to meet with us and really working hard to improve the communication around COVID-19 protocols and to improve the amount of testing available to staff and students around COVID-19. Those were some early concerns that we have, and we really do appreciate working with us on that. That being said, I also want to express that N95 masks are still not available to staff, and I will continue to remind the board and continue to remind the public that we need to get those into the hands of staff as soon as possible. Many teachers are paying for their own to try to get them. Other teachers simply don't have them. And other teachers are distributing them to people at their sites. So let's get those N95 masks into the hands of staff as soon as possible. If one staff member gets sick, it's $225 a day. You can get a lot of N95 masks for that. So I wanted to reiterate that to the board. I'm happy to hear that there's progress on that, but we need to have them at school sites as soon as possible. Additionally, I will convey that I am glad to hear that the HEPA filters are coming soon. However, the board ordered those back on December 9th, and they should have been there a while ago. So I look forward to seeing those in classrooms. And if it even keeps one person from getting sick, it's worth it. Thank you and have a good evening.
Thank you, Bob. I see Kira.
Good evening, everyone. I also want to speak to extending our safety measures. Through many of these shifts and many changes and many of the updates, one of the things remains true, that we need to continue very robust safety strategies for all of our students, for all of our staff. I know we're all doing the very best we can, but I I urge us to move very quickly on providing those N95 and KN95 masks and the air filtrations to all of the staff, students in classrooms. I'm so happy to hear about the updates that these will be arriving soon, maybe even in days. So please follow through with this. We need them now, if not yesterday. These actions are very necessary to sustain in this climate right now. All of these measures will show that Oak Grove is committed to supporting safety and committed to supporting community care. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments on item 8.1?
No other comments.
Okay, seeing no other public comments, trustees, are there any questions or comments at this time? Go ahead, Member Pacheco.
I just want to say that I really hope that we can get N95 or KN95 masks in the hands of our teachers. Research shows that it's more effective than just cloth masks or regular other masks at preventing Omicron, which is insanely, transmittable. Its transmissibility is absolutely out of this world. I mean, I don't know a single person that hasn't been affected at this point by COVID, like personally with an infection. So I hope that by getting these masks, investing in them and then also looking towards the federal government, which has just notified people that they will be sending hundreds of millions of these masks to community health centers, to hospitals for free for everybody. I hope that everybody can take advantage of those. So if you're a teacher out there, if you're a staff, community member, parent, go to your nearest community health center, go to your nearest hospital, and get some of these masks. This is something that is recent and something that is available to everybody for free. So no teacher should be spending their own money on this. This is something that should be supplied by not only the federal government, but I also believe our district.
Thank you, Pacheco, Member Pacheco. On that similar note, I know USPS is also allowing people to access some at-home testing kits where you can just sign up on USPS and get 4 for a household, which is still not enough, but it's something that we can get our hands on. So I also encourage people to visit USPS. Any other comments from trustees, questions? I see Member Yu, go ahead.
I apologize if we've covered this in previous meetings, but are we able to do on-site testing at the school sites? The testing we're offering from BPLS is currently at our school sites. Is that our middle schools at Burnell and Herman or the Academy at Davis? Right, sorry. What I meant to ask was, can there be testing on site at every school site, like a weekly rotating schedule or something? With the current personnel that we've been allocated through CDPH and the MOU, they give us a certain amount of personnel that we can utilize for testing. And that's what gives us our 2 testing teams through BPLS. Earlier in the year, we were able to deploy one of those testing teams for half a day to the school site to do close contact testing. So we had a day and a half then of walk up. At that time, we were maybe getting 1 or 2 positive cases a day. So it was very doable for that response team for a half a day to go to the site the next day of those positive cases to test the close contacts who had permission. And so that was something that we did offer. It wasn't something that was required of districts, but we took a quarter of that testing team for half a day every day to do that response testing. We did try to keep that up. We started after the break with that same model of sending a BPLS team out half a day. And even within a couple of days, realized that half a day wasn't enough. So that's why we closed one of the sites and just kept the academy open. And what we saw was the effect of very long lines at the academy because we didn't have the walk-up availability. And then additionally, with the amount of cases that were coming up positive every day with Omicron, even just having the one testing team with shutting down the walk-up put them so far behind that it created another pain point and frustration point of the BPLS team not being able to come out. And so through lots of conversation and assessing and triaging, we decided that we would prioritize to just full walk-ups with the allocation of personnel that we had available for Bay PLS. And we understand that that was a change in what we could offer to students on site. We wanted to, as long as possible, be able to provide that to students, but it became very apparent quickly that we are causing more frustration by not being able to follow through with the amount of personnel that we've been allocated through CDPH.
Thank you, Assistant Superintendent Bowles. Any other questions or comments from trustees at this time? Okay. Seeing none, that will then conclude item 8.1, and we will go ahead and move forward to our closing items. Seeing first 9.1, correspondence and board discussion. At this time, board members may report correspondence from individuals and or organizations regarding district programs and or services, committee assignments, visits to schools, meetings attended, and other related district matters. I'll go ahead and just open the floor, and trustees, whenever you feel moved.
I don't have too much of a report with the weekend and then the long the holidays and the long weekend, but I was fortunate enough to visit some schools with Superintendent Bowles before the holidays, and President Hernandez and I have also set some time to meet with our superintendent and our vice superintendent around wellness. And so I'm definitely looking forward to that, to seeing what we can roll out, but not too much of a report this time around.
All right. Well, thank you all. I would just like to shout out again that coat distribution. It was a rainy, cold day, but it was also very organized. So organized chaos and very fun. To just make sure that we are serving our community. So I would love the opportunity to do that again. So thank you, OGA, for organizing that, for members for attending. And we look forward to just showing up a lot more in the community like that this 2022, of course, with COVID considerations in mind. So at this time, then we move towards 9.2 adjournment. If we can, please get a motion and a second to adjourn this meeting.
I move to adjourn today's meeting.
Second.
All right. Meeting is adjourned at 8:28 p.m. Good night, everybody. Stay safe.
If you could just ask for everybody to say aye.
Oh, yes. Roll call, or is it just?
I think for the final, it's just a verbal aye. It's good.
All right. All in favor then?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Fantastic. Meeting is adjourned at 8:29 p.m. now. Good night, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.